قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. So when you're gathering with the remembrance of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, as a gift to the soul of Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Habibi Qulubina Rasulullah and his honorable and dignified progeny, recite the second salawat. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower onto this gathering with his infinite mercy and compassion, and to hasten the reappearance of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. Cheryl was a young girl who went through a lot of anguish. At a young age, her parents got divorced. And her mom, being a single mom, had to take care of her children. They had to downsize from one small apartment to another. She had to pick up extra shifts to pay for the bills. They could not afford the basic necessities of life. And Cheryl and her family had to struggle. Like hundreds, thousands, maybe thousands upon thousands of American families today. But her anguish didn't end there. Her mother also had relationship problems. She could not settle on a single man. And this played on the emotions of this young Cheryl, until she found a man, seemed to be decent, and they got married. This man went out in the boonies, out on the sticks, and purchased a lot of land, acreage. On the weekends, holidays, summer breaks, they would go to this piece of land, and as a family, they would build out a house that they're going to call home one day. By the time she was 20 years old, they moved into this home. Then she applied to college. And she was the very first person in her family to step foot on the soil of a college campus. Things were looking different now. There was a bright future. Her mom, being in her early 40s, decided that, look, Cheryl, I don't need to work anymore, so I'm going to apply to college as well. And she got in. And they would drive every day together to college, spend time at the library, enjoy each other's company, help each other with their homework. She was living the happiest days of her life. When her mom was 45 years old, she took her mom for a routine checkup. The results came. The doctor called, please come back to the clinic. They showed up at the clinic, and the doctor starts explaining to Cheryl's mom, Cheryl being 22 years old, her mom being 45 years old, that you have what's called stage 4 cancer. And at best, you only have 3 months. Cheryl was days away from graduation. She says, I sat there thinking, my mom, she's so healthy. There's nothing wrong with her. She's the only person that I have. She's my backbone. She's my best friend. What's going to happen to me? Just when my life started to get better, my mom is leaving? She says, I zoned out. I was numb. The doctor continued to explain, but I couldn't hear him. On the drive back home, she said there were no exchange of words between me and my mom. There was just awkward silence for 2 hours. And I was just crying, but from the inside. How could you tell me that I'm going to lose my mom? Days away from my graduation. She says the 3 months promised by the doctor turned into very quick 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, I had to put my mom 7 feet deep. I wasn't thinking about graduating or college or a career or none of that. She says being lost, confused, scared, lonely, upset with life. I went to my stepdad and I said to him, well, I don't have anybody now. You're the only person I have. I hope you're not going to abandon me. She said he looked me dead in the eye and he said, listen to me, Cheryl. I've already moved on. I was there because of your mom, but I'm not your dad. I don't need to take care of you. You're an adult. You're 22 years old. She said that moment was the worst moment of my life, the loneliest moment of my life, the darkest moment of my life. And words cannot describe how a person might feel in that moment. I can't go back home. I don't have a mother. I lost my best friend. I don't have a backbone. I'm abandoned. I'm lost. I'm scared. I'm impoverished. So she tried to apply for a few random jobs. She couldn't maintain them because of her mental state. And soon she became homeless. And then she became a junkie. And then she had to sell her dignity and honor to buy drugs. Before I continue to tell you the ending of the story of Cheryl Strayed, which has one of the best sellers and number 1 on the list of Oprah Winfrey, take a moment and thank Allah. If you have parents, thank Allah. If you're healthy, thank Allah. If you have a home, thank Allah. If you lead a drug-free life, thank Allah. Don't take your life for granted. Don't complain. So she says, I was homeless. I didn't know what to do. And I decided that I have 2 options. There was no third option. 2 options only. One is to own my life. to make a promise to myself. And number two, to end my life. Whether it's with drugs, whether it's with overdose, whether it's with suicide. So she decided that she's going to own her life. She made a promise to herself that she's going to overcome this challenge. And it takes a lot of bravery, by the way, to make such decisions. Right? So she makes a plan, a wild plan, a crazy plan to hike the Pacific Coast Trail. 2,800 miles. This young girl, she lost her job, she lost her mom, she has no money, she has nothing. She's going to just hike the Pacific Coast Trail, 2,800 miles, and in this journey, she's going to find her life. And in this journey, she's going to find her soul. And in this journey, she's going to make many promises to herself. And in this journey, she's going to become a mountain of perseverance, of tolerance, of patience, of endurance. And when she becomes a mountain, nothing can shake a mountain. But she met a dude. So she says this guy would take her out while she was planning to go on the hike, and she started smiling, she started laughing, started having a good time, going to the movies, Netflix and chill. And then she goes to herself, well, I don't really need to take that hike. Life is getting better. And she made the biggest mistake that a human being can ever make. Pause your life, change your plans for somebody else. Happiness does not begin with your mom or your dad or your math teacher or your basketball coach or your partner or your romance or your Romeo or your Juliet. Happiness begins from the inside of you. That is the only way you can receive real happiness. So for a year, she got married to this man right away. And then for a year, she lived with him. She became more miserable. Not only she became miserable, but she made his life miserable. To a point that this normal dude became suicidal. So she decides, listen, I need to get back to that plan. She gets the divorce papers ready. She signs the divorce papers. And then she takes the first step on the Pacific Coast Trail. This is a very inspirational story. Just continue to listen because this story might change the way you ever think about life. So she takes the journey out of a backpack. It's a 6-month journey. If she walked every single day, it would take her 6 months to finish this journey out of a backpack. She gets attacked by wild animals. She loses her water bottle. She is dying from thirst at times, dying from hunger at times. She gets lost. All sorts of things happen, right? And every time something happens, she decides, I need to quit. I can't take this. I mean, at a point, she talks about how she lost her shoes. Imagine you're hiking the Pacific Coast Trail barefoot, and your feet is bleeding. And you continue to tell yourself that I'm going to turn into a mountain of perseverance, of tolerance, of patience. But I mean, we're human beings in the end of the day. We will break down. So she felt when, things were horrible. She lost food, so she says, I was just eating random things. The canned food that I had, when I ate this canned food, it felt, each bite I was taking, I had to chew that bite for like 10 minutes just to feel food. Canned food. And not to have to eat grass, right? She says, when I felt at the lowest of the low, the bottom of the bottom, thinking that I need to quit, immediately, I got a phone call from my stepdad. He says, hey, Cheryl, you know the farmhouse? Yeah. You know the horse we had? Yes. Well, it's not doing so well. And she says, I had a special bond with this horse. I love this horse. You might want to go check up on the horse. He says, that's the only thing that would have gotten me to go to that house. I went to that house, this most beautiful, gorgeous horse that we owned with a beautiful coat is now thin, it's shivering, it's got cuts and bruises, it's swollen hands. And I call a vet and I explain the situation. It was around Christmas, it was around New Year's, and the vet tells me, listen, it's going to take me like 2 months to get out there. From what you're describing to me, this horse needs to be, what? Put down. You need to end its misery. It says, I put the halter, I tried to get the horse out of the barn. It was not even able to walk, but it was looking at me like, finally, somebody's here. Thank you. And I had to grab a shotgun and put a bullet in its skull. It says, I put the first bullet, and the vet was shouting, put the other one, Cheryl, put the other one. She says, I put the second bullet, and this was it for me. I had a meltdown, a complete meltdown. I need to give up on life. What kind of life is this? How come I never get a break? The third one needs to be in my own skull. And I took the gun and I put it on my skull. Should I shoot? Do I end my life? Do I continue? Living in a state of confusion, misery, anguish, pain. And she says, no. I promised myself that I'm going to turn myself into a mountain. I'm going to become a beast. I'm going to overcome my problems. She got back on the Pacific Coast Trail. The rest, I'll let you read. But why did I begin today's lecture that is about cancel culture with Cheryl's story? I'll tell you why. Because I believe that first of all, it's a story we all relate to, one way or another. We all relate to pain. We all relate to having to overcome pain, difficulty in our life. It's my story, your story, the story of millions of people in this country. But not only that, I believe that if the story of the American Muslim community were to be the story of a person, it would be the story of Cheryl. I firmly believe in this. I sat there for hours thinking about this. You know, you've probably all seen this documentary of how the first wave of immigrants came from Lebanon and the Titanic, and they had to put dollars and cents to build this community. And when there was a community, then, you know, there was an opportunity, a possible opportunity, and then 9/11 happens. And then after 9/11, there's Al-Qaeda. And then after Al-Qaeda, there's Taliban. And after Taliban, there is ISIS. And after ISIS, there's all sorts of... It just seems like we never get a break. And every time this happens, a lot of people quit. You think, I don't know? I know. A lot of people quit. You start an organization, everybody's hyped up, and then something happens, you don't get enough donations, enough people don't show up, or you don't meet your expectations, and then 4 people just, I quit. And the next time something else happens, more people quit. But if you look at the history of Islam, from its inception until today, there is a group of unwavering individuals that have erased the word quit out of their dictionary. It doesn't exist. Since the inception of Islam and until today. And the reason why me and you are here today is because of them. It's because those people understood that, look, as a person, you young folks should understand that nobody's going to stop using drugs on your behalf. Nobody's going to pass college on your behalf. Nobody's going to have the willpower that you need for success on your behalf. Nobody's going to think as a winner on your behalf. Nobody is going to be a top G on your behalf. That's the reality. And the same thing goes for our community. It's not easy. But if you look at the history of Islam, and until today, there is a group of people that have turned their willpower into a mountain, an unshakable mountain that allows Islam to continue and to grow despite all the odds, just like Cheryl did. Now ask yourself, are we a community that resembles Cheryl? Do we want to be another Cheryl as a community? Or are we a community of quitters? That is my question to you today. There's one thing I want you to walk away from this is the first question, right? The second question that I'd like to introduce in my introduction is there are communities, individuals that are willing to take bullets for you. Meaning that they're willing to go the extra mile to prepare such programs, discuss such things that nobody else wants to touch. They're going to take it upon their responsibility to build you the most beautiful center. They're going to take it upon their responsibility to discuss things that other people aren't willing to discuss. You think this is easy? To address things that others aren't willing to address. And the new trend is that I go after them. If somebody's not doing anything, they're not achieving anything, they're not accomplishing anything, nobody goes after them. But the new trend is that if you criticize me, if you say something that is meant to be addressed, that I'll go and I'll criticize you. I'll create chat groups and different ways to bring this person down. And this is what I want to focus on when discussing cancel culture. Because we, as a community of Muslims, have suffered from cancel culture more than anyone else. Before you press the cancel button on someone, okay, whether you're listening to me off YouTube or you're here or you're going to listen later, before you decide that you're going to go after a community or an organization or a leader or an activist reputation and you press the cancel button on them, ask yourself a very simple question. Why are you doing that? Is it for selfish reasons? Or is it for Allah? Do you look at the grand picture? Or are you just zoomed, looking in front of your nose? Because what I see in cancel culture today in America is people don't even care. I don't agree with you, I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to go after you. I'm going to make sure you don't have a platform. And as Muslims, we're not just going to be sheep. We're not just going to follow the trends. If you look at history, people who go through cancel culture are not the ones that are immoral. Or they're not the ones that are morally bankrupt. They're not the hypocrites. Actually, people that want to bring positive change to society are the ones that experience cancel culture. The ones that are trying to bring positive change are the ones that experience cancel culture. And the greatest example that I can think of is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Imagine Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam puts his entire life at stake. طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. Ya Rasulullah, you received this revelation not for you to fatigue yourself to a point where you're putting your life in jeopardy so that those people would turn into believers. And he tried. And he worked so hard. Yet he's accused, he's fought, they're throwing rocks at him. Then what they do is they accuse him. The first wave of cancel culture begins with accusation. And I'll get to the nitty-gritty. First wave of cancel culture is accusation. Accusations. Back then it was people standing. Then it became into letters. Then it became into pamphlets. Then it became into emails. Then it became to WhatsApp. Then it became to social media and into reels and into this and into that. But the mentality of cancel culture still exists. And just bear with me, I'll get to it. I'll get to the details that you're waiting for. Okay? Then they decided we're going to kill him. We're going to literally attack him and kill him. That didn't work because what happened? They went to kill him and they found that in his bed was laying the Lion of God, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Then there was a man by the name of Ibn al-Harith. He was an orator. He was the entertainment of the Arabian Peninsula. He was the Hollywood, right? They hired this guy. They said, listen, Muhammad, when he sits in Masjid al-Haram and he recites the Quran, he mesmerizes people. He has become the center of attention of all Arabs, especially when caravans come and go. Everybody's paying attention to him. So what we're going to do is we're 25 tribes. We're all going to hire you. We're going to pay you. Create a caravan and go to Persia. There, listen to the Persian poetry, the stories. Those people have a lot of artistic things. Learn, and then come back. We'll give you a place here and begin to tell their stories so you become the entertainment. And you take away from the attention given to Muhammad. Right? And he did. He went back, he came. He had so many stories to tell. And he was eloquent. So, that didn't work either. Then they decided battle after battle they're going to go after Rasulullah. That didn't work. Until today they're going after him. Until today, they're fighting Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I believe no man in the course of history has experienced cancel culture like the final messenger of God, Rasulullah Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Then, Amir al-Mu'mineen, 70 years they're cursing him from the top of the pulpits. Scholars, ulama, martyrs. But since I don't have much time, I'm going to skip everything I was going to talk about and just come to our community, literally our own community, our problem and dilemma today. What is it? Is this cancel culture talk about Andrew Tate? Is it about Kyler Irving? Is it about Kanye West? Is it even about Trump? I think it's more than that. Though that was a station I would have really loved to stop at. But I want to say, while Andrew Tate calls it the Matrix are after me, the Matrix are doing this, the Matrix are doing that. For us in our communities, it's the Ammus. It's the jiddus. It's the, uncles. And I obviously don't mean my own uncle here, but just the definition, Elders. And we respect the elders, but I'm trying to get to something. When I become 70, 80 years old, and I feel that, okay, I didn't feel as important as I wanted to feel. And I'm going to be very blunt. And I didn't achieve all the things I wanted to achieve. Today, I am power hungry. I want to exercise my authority over someone. So what do? I go to a community of poor people. They're trying to build a masjid. They're trying to build a community. They're trying to build a platform. And I want to exercise my authority over them. So if they say it's night, I say, no. Shu night. It's morning, Allah. What do you mean it's morning? Yeah, it's morning. This is what we're really suffering from. Exercising unnecessary authority over things and circumstances. And this is a true story I'm going to share with you. Really, this is a true story. They say that back in the day, in most Muslim countries, there was no running water in the toilets, in the bathrooms. So they would have the watering pots. You know the watering pots? Or the abri, what Iraqis call abrig. The Urdu definition of what? You know what it is? Lota. Lota. So in many languages, I've just defined it to you because it's very important. You go to somebody's house, they don't have a lota, you have to tell them, please provide a lota. So they were looking for someone to be the manager of the abri. The nicest way to say it is with a Lebanese accent because it's not a brig. So they wanted a manager for the watering, the watering cans. And they hired this guy. His job is when you go into the public bathroom, he hands you a watering can. That's it. So this guy came, he said, what's my role? They said, you're supposed to give out watering cans to people. So he thought to himself, after all those years, Hajj Flan, I'm going to be a watering can guy? I have to give a title to this. So he said, I'm the executive director of the breeze. The president of all presidents. Right? So there's a guy who's running into the bathroom. He has an emergency. And he grabs one of those watering cans. And he's about to run into the bathroom. He says, hey, what are you doing? He says, what do you mean? I just grabbed the watering can. I'm going into the bathroom. He says, come back. Ta'alula. He says, what happened? What did I do? He says, put it down. Put it down. So he says, put it down. Take the other one. So he takes the other one. He says, Yalla ruh. So he goes, he does his thing, he comes back, alhamdulillah. Then he says to him, please, I have a question. Why did you make me switch the breeze, the watering cans? He says, well, what do you think my job is here? I have to exercise my authority. Some people, they want to exercise their authority even with a watering can of a toilet, and that's the truth. And that is really what stems a lot of what I see in cancel culture today. But this doesn't end here. Speaking of watering cans, one of the places where we go into deep thinking and contemplation, whether you like to admit it or not, is actually in the bathroom. So, and I'm certain that Trump, many of his tweets were while he was sitting on the toilet seat. So there is this convert lady that came to me. She says, Sayyid, before I converted, I went in someone's home, a Muslim home. I went into the bathroom and I saw there is a watering pot, but there are no plants. Like, what is this? Where's the plant? I look for the plant. There's no plant. So I thought to myself, what could this be? Right? She went in deep contemplation there. And really for us Muslims, when we go to buy, I recently moved to Houston. So the first day that I got this new house, I needed to go and buy 4 lotas right away, right? But imagine, who buys those watering cans? Usually who buys them? It's retired white people, they're trying to water their garden. They plan a whole day to go and pick the nicest one, the cutest one to water their plants. Let's call them Steve and Liz, for example. So Steve and Liz end up going to Lowe's. They buy this beautiful watering can, and they're walking back together. We've made this accomplishment today, right? And then they tell them the return policy is 30 days. So on the 29th day, they'll return it. They'll say, we'll grab another one. This is for Liz and Steve. But when we go in there, it takes us 2 minutes and we're carrying 4 of them. Yalla. So what happens there is, of course, this teller is going to be confused. Like, why this guy needs 4? Does he water his plants with a different bucket? Each plant has a dedicated bucket to it. The moral of all of this, brothers and sisters, is the fact that many of us, when we think of cancel culture and why people are being canceled and why they're being excommunicated and why they're being avoided, the truth is that a lot of it stems from something within us. And that is greed for power. I don't like someone, so I'm going to cancel them. I don't agree with them, so I'm going to cancel them. Number 2 is intolerance. And with this, I'll conclude. Sometimes I may feel that this person is wrong. I may feel that this person is really wrong. I don't agree with them, whether it's their historical research, it's their Islamic perspective, it's whatever it may be. But it doesn't mean that I should not have the tolerance to allow them to freely express themselves. Within the course of history, many of our scholars have been silenced because of this. If we would just have more tolerance. You don't agree with him? You don't agree with his opinion? There's no reason to mute him. There's no reason to cancel him. You offer your perspective. You speak your truth and allow him to also express himself. One of our greatest scholars, Al-Allama Tabatabai, he was sent into exile from Qom because there was a group of people who didn't necessarily agree with his opinions. He's the author of the most important book of tafsir. Are we going to continue? Today, the intolerance is to a point where if you don't agree with the same marja' that I follow, you will not even be given a platform in my community. You cannot even speak in my community. You're banned from my community. Not only banned from my community, I will stop others from listening to you as well. Why? Because he follows another marja'. What kind of Islam is this? Do you see, brothers and sisters, Imam al-Husayn's body was taken by the enemies, meaning it was cut into pieces. There was a stampede over the body of Imam al-Husayn. But the spirit of Imam al-Husayn remains. We are supposed to protect the spirit of Imam al-Husayn. Imam al-Husayn was the one who went to others and told them to join me, and he created an inclusive camp that stands for humanity, morals, human values. In the name of Imam al-Husayn, we cannot continue to create disunity amongst our own community. And that's what we're seeing today. And this is what I want to address when it comes to cancel culture. And with this I conclude. I leave you with several questions. Number 1, there is a discussion in Islamic theology amongst our scholars discussing cancel culture from a completely different angle called Kutub al-Dhalal, misguiding books. Well, books are there still, but not so much. But what about misguiding podcasts? What about misguiding shows? So if you had a podcast, or if you rented a facility for a podcast, Could you bring someone that's going to discuss atheism? Is it halal or haram? The money you take, is it halal or haram? There's a fiqhi mas'ala that we have to respond to. If you had a print house and somebody came and gave you a book, and this book, for example, spoke against Islamic values, can you print that book? Is it halal or haram for you to print that book? Can you carry that book in your library? Can you quote a scholar who may say things that guide people, and at times he may have a little few things that may misguide people? Is this halal or haram? All those discussions are contemporary discussions that have arrived and are extremely important today and must be addressed. When will we address them? Not too long from now. Inshallah, next week. Saturday at, where's the Salih? Mecca. What is the address? So Salih, where's the address? It's in Canton. So inshallah, we will continue this journey with you next Saturday, sahih? In Canton. Thank you very much for having me. May Allah bless you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.